Hello, this demo will be looking at how to build the base of a blender around provided motor parts. The objective is to learn some realistic manufacturing details such as part lines. This is often how two parts come together around components in product design. We will also be looking at draft, which is how parts are molded, similar to muffins being baked and released. It's simply this angle. And we will be providing or applying both of these methods into the building of the blender base. This is a preview of where we're headed. Eventually, the pitcher assembly with blade will need to be added, and this is how it's going to interface with the base that we will be building today. For a little bit of context on blenders, this is what the pitcher assembly looks like. The blade has a star shape here for attaching to the sprue from the motor. This is the cup that drops into the base that we will be building today. So with that said, let's go ahead and get started. This file has been provided for you to build directly on. In a later demo, it'll be shown how this was set up using downloaded parts from grabcad.com. So the first step is to edit the primary front sketch. I right-clicked on it and clicked on the Edit Sketch icon. I can also select it and click on the sketch icon up here. And if we take a view normal to us, the first step is to design the side profile of our blender. I do recommend, so if you're going for something minimal, maybe it's just a straight vertical line. But I think for the purpose of this demo and learning, I would recommend something a little bit more complex than that. However, one critical component is to just have a vertical line somewhere in your side profile design, and ideally bigger than 0.1 inches. I'm going to have mine at 0.2. Maybe to add a bit of interest and a bit more dynamic lighting in my render, I'll just make this top body curved. But this is open to your design interpretation. So I'm going to exit out of there, and the first step we're going to create is a revolve. So I'm going to create a new front plane sketch. So I'm going to select the front plane, click on the sketch tab, and click on the sketch icon to enter that. And I will copy or convert entities, aspects from our primary front sketch. So if I just select the primary front and click on convert entities, it will only copy those lines which are not for construction. If I want to copy over construction lines like the bottom, top, and center, I can just select them by holding Control and clicking on them manually. So we want a shape, something similar to this, closed shape. If we toggle this on, it'll show us whether it's closed. And I'm going to go ahead and click on Features. I'm still in the sketch, and I'm going to load the revolve base. Anything here highlighted in blue is asking us a question. In this case, what is the axis of revolution? I'm going to click on the center line. It's a good habit to get into building things in quarters or halves. It's a little bit less work, so I'm going to change this setting to 90 degrees, and we do not want to merge result. This is incredibly important when building around components like this, because we do not want our feature to consume this. Now this would be great if we are building a revolved or circular blender, and if that's your design intent, you can use this as your starting body for the base. Let's say you wanted something not revolved or more square. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a sketch on the right plane, and I'm going to select this face here and click on Convert Entities. And what we've essentially done is we've copied our primary sketch 90 degrees to the right. So in this case, the revolve is acting sort of like a support build or a body just for construction. I'm now going to create a new front plane sketch, so I'm going to click on the front plane and using my hotkeys click on Alt-S to enter that sketch mode. And I'm just going to copy over sketch 1 here by selecting it from the tree and clicking Convert Entities and then exiting the sketch. And now I have two sketches I can loft to make something that's not a revolve. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm not inside of any sketches, I'm going to go ahead and click on Lofted Boss Base. Again, the highlighted blue is asking me a question, so I'm going to drop down my tree here, and this is to avoid inadvertently selecting the primary sketch or something like that. I can specifically select sketches by name, and in this case I want sketch 2 and sketch 3. Now the loft gives you this basic connection curve or guide elements, and we want to drag these to the same points in each sketch to give us the best chance of a successful loft. So in this case, top point to top point. And you can kind of see it's giving us a straight shot. Maybe that's the design you want. For me, I'm going to go for a start and end constraint of normal to profile and normal to profile. When we mirror this later, it will give us a tangency across the body and a smoothness. Now, we can control this curve with a sketch if we wanted to, or we can just control it with this number. So I'm just going to put in something bigger, like 2 for each, and you can kind of see the shape we're going to get. Now, once again, like the revolve, it is important to not merge result, so I'm going to uncheck that box. And there we go. We have a slightly different body. That's not just a simple revolve. So, you can make the choice for whatever design intent you might have. Now we're going to prepare for the picture by creating a cavity in the top here. So I'm actually going to select this plane that's provided, picture cup base, and create a sketch on it. And the sketch that I want is from the top primary. It's this circle, and I'm going to convert entities on that. Then while I'm still inside the sketch, I'm going to go over to the Features tab, click on Extrude Cut, and just say Through All. And now this is really important for feature scope. Again, when working with components, we don't want to cut away our components. We need to uncheck Auto Select and make sure we're just selecting the body that we want to cut away. And now this is preparing for the, a future step of adding the picture. Now, up next, we want to determine where our part line is going to go. So we can select the top plane and go to View, Display, and look for Draft Analysis. And what this does is it shows us how a part might be molded. Green will be one part of the mold, red will be another, and yellow is neutral. So basically, all you need to pay attention to is on this outer face where the yellow splits the green and the red. That's roughly where your part line might be. You can play with this value here. So I'm going to leave that on, and I'm going to take a front plane sketch. So click on the front plane, click on Sketch, and then you can hit Alt plus N for normal, or select this icon here. And we can see that the yellow neutrality is happening somewhere here between these two parts. So I'm going to go ahead and create a line. I'm going to hit L on my keyboard for the hotkey. And I'm just going to basically drag this line with a setting of horizontal. I'm going to have it go roughly through this yellow portion. If you followed the instructions of having a short vertical line, it's likely going to be in the midpoint of this line. I'm going to exit that. Now maybe yours looks a little bit different. I'm going to go back and edit the primary sketch to illustrate this. So I'm just going to hit D for dimension and lock this in place. And imagine, maybe I need to lock more in place, so I'm also going to dimension that. Now it appears that I added a rule here. I did not mean to make that tangent. So let's just imagine that you maybe had a more unique body like this. In this case, I might put the part line here, right? Because the red and the green are separated by this yellow here. This yellow is only separating red and red. Again, then, I would want to edit the sketch to put this short vertical roughly here, if that's what the design had entailed. Another way to do this is to change your shape so that anything above your vertical is facing 3 degrees in. So let me show you what that looks like. I just added a line. I'm going to hit D for dimension and dimension this to 3 degrees. And now this represents draft. So let's talk a little bit about this. I'm going to bring back up this muffin picture from the beginning of the video. And when we're baking muffins, you'll notice that the pan, if I were to give it a section view, has these soft angles. And that's so that when the muffin is baked, it can pop right out of the pan. If instead it were to have a reverse angle, like these were to be cut in, the muffins would not release cleanly. Basically, you would lose a little bit of muffin in these corners. So that is the basics of draft. It's a soft angle similar to this first image in order that molded plastic parts release and come clean away from the mold. So that's what this 3 degrees represents. What I can actually do is drag this line down and make any curvature tangent to a 3-degree line like that. And that's how we can now very accurately control our draft to be located here. Now this can be distracting, so I'm going to go to View and Display and turn this off. But that's how to locate where to place a part line. So like I said, if you're following these steps, it's probably right in the middle of this vertical line. And so what we're going to actually do is we're going to use this to cut and separate our top and bottom parts to make this, again, like a realistic product with a part line and mold detail. So while I'm still in this line sketch, I know I'm there because of this icon, I can go to Features and go to Extruded Cut. Now we're going to use a couple unique settings here. We want to go through all, and we can, or through all both, either one works. But we want to check the thin feature. And if we take a front view or a normal view, we can see, right, it's giving us the yellow rectangle of where this cut will be. And actually we want it to be mid-plane, so we want it to be centered on this vertical line. And a thickness of 0.1 is perfect. Now, again, working with components, we want to make sure we don't cut them. So for feature scope, we're going to uncheck auto select and only click on our body that we want to cut, and then click on the green check mark. Now it's going to ask us, what bodies do you want to keep? We want to keep all of them. Now I'm noticing there's a bug. Despite selecting just this body, we cut our components. And again, this is the issue if we do not pay attention to what we are applying our features to. So let's say you notice that this didn't go quite right. We can edit this feature and try this again. Selected bodies, just clicking on this outer body. Click the green check. It's going to ask us this again and say OK. And for some reason it worked on the second time. So if it did not work for you on the first time, try it again. All right, so now we have our top part and our bottom part. We are ready to shell these. Shelling is a command that makes them hollow. So I'm going to go to my feature tab and load the shell. I'm going to go ahead and click on these 2 faces here, or 3 faces rather, on the top part. We want to leave this pocket in here. That's why we did the cut first. It's also worth mentioning that it's best practice to maybe do some filleting before your shell. So I'm actually going to roll my blue bar here first. So now we are working before the shell. And I'm just going to put a small fillet on this outer edge using the edge fillet command. Maybe something small like 0.1. Not getting too close to this edge here. So again, that's just best practice. It doesn't really impact it since there's not a lot of material here. Now, next up, we're going to load, loading from that, I'm going to throw another fillet here, maybe to make this a little bit more evident. I'll make it just a bit bigger, like 0.3. And now I'm going to load the shell command again and click on these 3 faces. Click that green check mark. And now we can see that this fillet has translated into the shell. All right, now we're ready to add the part line. What we're going to do is select the bottom face of the top part. It's flat, so we can sketch on it, and we're going to go ahead and click on the sketch icon. And then we're going to select whatever edges we want along here, perhaps holding Control to select multiple and convert entities. In my case, it's just one single edge. So once we have it selected, we convert entities on that. And now we're going to load an extrude command. And we don't want it to be through all, we want it to be blind. In this case, we want a value of 0.1 inches. And then we definitely want the thin feature checked. And in this case, we want it to be 0.05 inches thick. Now it's worth mentioning to pay attention to which way the thin feature is being bumped, whether it's bumped to the left or bumped to the right. In this case, we want it to align with the body, so we want it to go to the right. If it is on this outside here, you might get an error when you complete the command. So we're just extruding this really thin wall coming down. We do want to merge the result, but we don't want it to auto-select. We only want it to merge with this top body. And then we're going to go ahead and click on the green check. And you should have a result similar, something similar to this. Then we're going to select the top face of the bottom part and similarly create a sketch. And also select, in this case, the outside edges. If you need to select multiple, hold Control and continue to select them. And then click on Convert Entities. Now, similar to what we did on the top face, we're going to go back to Features. We're still inside the sketch. We're going to load an Extruded Boss Base command. Because we're still in the sketch, it applies the command to the sketch we are within. And we're going to use similar settings. So in this case, blind. This case, we don't want to go all the way to the top, 0.05. Thin feature 0.05 as well, and again checking that it is aligning with the body, so it's not going to the outside of it. Once again, we do want to merge result, but not auto select. We only want it to merge with the bottom, and go ahead and click that green check. Now this is what most part lines on products actually look like. Up until this point, we've just been using fillets, which is okay for a rendering, but roughly this gap represents an accounting for tolerance. When objects are molded, they shrink a little bit, they cool at different speeds. This basically enables there to be a little bit of tolerance for those variances in manufacturing. It also works kind of like a puzzle to lock the two pieces together. So those are some reasonings for that part line. The reason we're going through the trouble for this is, once again, to make our products look as realistic as possible. So that is the real part line on the base. Really, the quickest final step would be to just mirror both of these parts left and right, and then front and back to complete the shape. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to select the front plane and mirror bodies, so in this case these two, and I can say merge results. And then we can go ahead and select the right plane and load the mirror command, and once again with bodies select both of these and say merge result. Now we should know by now that the most efficient way to work, again, is in halves or quarters depending on your level of symmetry. So let's say we wanted to add a little bit of perforations or venting for this fan at the bottom. I've seen it done in a couple ways. One way is actually to have the perforations on this face with some feet and standoffs. You could do that if you wanted. I'm going to choose to put my perforations here so that they're visible from a side view. So I'm going to actually create a sketch on this bottom face. We can do that because it's flat. Again, I'm going to take a view normal to me so I can see it. And I'm actually just going to take a circle sketch, and I'm going to put it about midway along this line here. Then I'm purposely cutting from the bottom because this is how this part would be molded. Again, thinking of this like baking a muffin. This is, you know, the bottom of the muffin and the top here. So if we do have any venting, that's why it makes sense to cut it from the bottom to align with the draft we talked about earlier. So I'm going to load features, extrude cut. In this case, I'm just setting a blind setting, and I want to make sure that I cross through this body. I guess a through all would also work. Once again, for feature scope, we want to make sure we're not auto-selecting and only cutting through this body. All right, so now we want to pattern this venting all the way around. I'm going to go ahead and load under linear pattern a curve-driven pattern. And for the direction, I'm going to select this bottom tangent edge of the fillet. And for the features, I'm going to select this. And now I'm going to change my settings here to be offset curve and tangent to curve. And I think this should give us a pretty even spread. We can change the number of perforations we want by playing with that number there. So again, adjusting things like that makes sense before the mirror. So I can drag this down. And I'm going to hide this top body and add another manufacturing detail. So I'm going to create a sketch on this face here. We can do that because it's flat. So I'm going to select this face and load the sketch command. And we're going to select from our primary top sketch this circle and convert entities. Really, technically speaking, it would make more sense for our circle to just be slightly larger than this one. Let's try that. And I'm going to load an extrude command. And what we're doing is we're basically building in a mounting point for the motor. Now for this setting, I'm going to say up to next. And what this does is it will stop whenever it hits the next body, which in this case should be the bottom. I'm a little bit worried about, you want to make sure your circle is not like too big, in that I believe if it like intersects here, the up to next may not work quite so well. So let's try this for now. And again, building with draft, you can build with draft directly in your command. So we want this to draft 3 degrees. Now the way that it works is it assumes that the part line is where the sketch is starting. So it's actually going to taper this in. I'll show you what that looks like. So I'm going to hit the green. Oh, before I hit the green check, we want to once again make sure we're merging to the correct object. So we're going to uncheck auto select and click on this base here. Now let's see what this looks like. If we once again load, if I select this bottom face and display the draft analysis, you can see that this is going the wrong way. You never want to see like green in the middle of a field of red. You always want it to have an even split. And that's because it's going the wrong direction, right? If we were pulling this out of a mold, this wouldn't release. So we want to go back and edit our command here, the boss extrude, by right-clicking on it and selecting the extrusion icon. And we want to draft outward. And now you can see it grew wider. We are having a little bit of overlap, but I'm glad to see it did not impact the up to next setting. If for some reason that's not working for you, I think another setting that would work is up to surface and selecting this face. That's an alternative there. And now same thing, if we go view, display, draft analysis, and then for our plane, selecting this, we can see that now this is red. So that's playing nicely. Right, so this now represents a mounting point for our motor. I would create a sketch on this face here. So I'm going to load the sketch command, selecting the face, loading the sketch command. Once again, taking a view normal to us. Alt-V to see our primary sketches, and we're just going to create a circle. I hit O on my keyboard there. Something smaller, and this will just be an extrude cut set to through all. Again, making sure to only cut the base. And now this represents sort of a mounting point. In manufacturing, this is referred to as a boss, and it can be used for elements like this, for mounting parts within, or I guess mounting components within a part. And now we can roll our bar down here and have our final mirror. And then here is the base of our blender. All right, so I hope that made sense. This should put you into a good position now to start working on other bases and other picture assemblies in order to design these into full-blown blenders. Thank you.